Hey knitting peeps, welcome back to my channel, bopeepknits. My name is Lisa, if we have not yet met before. I'm a beginner knitter based in Canada. I hope that you are all doing well. It has been quite an eventful couple of months in the Bopeep household. I went to Asia, and even before that, if you watched my birthday sweater knitting vlog, you may have seen that I am now an engaged woman. And so that is just crazy to me. But yeah, things are kind of moving along, which means that I will have to plan a wedding and all the bridal festivities are about to begin. And of course, because I am a knitter, I'm going to try to knit a couple of things for these upcoming celebrations, maybe even for my wedding, we will see. But let's start small at first. So, in this episode of petiteknits, I will be knitting the Ivy blouse by petiteknit, and I will be showing you the knitting process from start to finish in this video. I've always wanted a soft, ethereal mohair blouse. When I first started knitting, I knew of the blouse number 1 Light by My Favorite Things Knitwear, as well as the Sadie top by Woozy by Celine. But I don't know, there was just something about the Ivy blouse when it was released last year. It just spoke to me and I knew that I eventually had to knit it. But I didn't have any plans to knit it this year. It was not in my Make 9. That was until I went to Japan and I went into a store called Amimono Spin, and my eyes laid upon this beautiful and stunning mohair yarn. This is the Amimono Spin Fish 3 in the colorway blue. The composition of this yarn is 60% kid mohair and 40% silk. Side note, I had to memorize the composition of the yarn just because there actually isn't any information about the yarn on the labels. You can only find the composition information as well as other information like meterage on their website, or in store. They have these little labels that they have on their yarn displays. But on the actual yarn skeins themselves, there's literally no information other than the logo. So that is a little bit inconvenient. But anyway, Amimono Spin Fish 3. That is the yarn that I will be using for my Ivy blouse, and I'm super excited. I fell in love immediately when I saw the yarn in store, and I normally don't really gravitate towards this kind of blue color, so I am really excited to knit it up. So I bought 7 skeins of the Fish 3 yarn, and I'm keeping my fingers and my toes crossed that will be a good amount of yarn. I feel like I should be okay just because petiteknit holds mohair double in the pattern. And if you look closely, there are actually 3 strands of mohair spun together. So there's a blue strand, a pink strand, and a white strand. This will be my first time knitting entirely with mohair, so I am feeling a little bit nervous. I feel like mohair can be quite unforgiving when it comes to weaving in ends and making any mistakes. It will definitely show through in the fabric. So when I was actually knitting my swatch, I made a little tiny mistake here. Not too sure what happened. Maybe I just kind of held it funny, but it is so obvious. Like my eyes just go immediately to that little hole there, and so I feel like I have to be extra careful when working with this yarn. Hi, it's editor Bopeep here. So I just realized that some of my footage went missing. I'm not too sure what happened, but I did want to talk about in detail my gauge swatch. So this is my gauge swatch here, and the pattern gauge for the Ivy blouse is supposed to be 23 stitches by 33 rows, I believe, and I'm happy to say that I was able to almost perfectly meet gauge. So my gauge ended up being 23 stitches by 32 rows on 3.5mm needles, so not too far off, and I feel like I've knitted enough petiteknit patterns by now to kind of get a sense of her gauge. And I think our gauge is usually pretty similar. I'm off by a couple of stitches. Based on my swatch, I'm pretty happy with the fabric. I really like how it strikes a pretty good balance between sheer and opaque. I feel like once this blouse knits up, I can style it in so many different ways even after the wedding. And I don't even think I mentioned why I'm knitting the ivy blouse for my bridal festivities slash wedding. I know I'm a bride and brides are supposed to wear white on their special day, but I don't really feel any significant feelings about that tradition. And I kind of wanted to incorporate a little bit of color. And I'm usually a off-white ivory type of person anyway, as opposed to a very bright white. And so I feel like this super like soft, sheer, mohair blouse with like a cute little like bralette underneath and like an off-white satin skirt with some lace edging. That would be so cute. Or even like this ivy blouse on top of like the super flowy dress, you know? And like I could even wear this even outside of the bridal era. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Back to regular Bo Peep. So I'm very excited to cast on this project now. I am really hoping that I look good in blue. Maybe it's because I don't really see myself in blue all too much, but I don't know. I'm really hoping that I can pull it off. If not, I can always hold this yarn with another mohair, like a creamy white or like a beige or maybe even a pink or something to kind of dilute the blue a little bit. We will see. But I don't know, in the viewfinder, I don't think it looks too blue. In person, under certain types of lighting, the blue does look very prominent. So we will see, but I don't know. I think that it is so beautiful that I'm willing to give it a shot. And if I don't end up liking how it looks, I can always rip it back and pair it with another mohair. So we will see. Maybe I'm just not used to seeing myself in blue. But yeah, I cannot wait to cast on the ivy blouse. So we'll get started on that. So I have quite a bit of progress to share at my first check-in. So this is my ivy blouse so far. Super cute. I have finished working the yoke as well as the shoulder increases on the ivy blouse. I feel like it is knitting up pretty quickly, which is great news for me because I need to actually finish this top for my bachelorette dinner, which is in about a month. I feel like we're on track for that. But my next step is working the raglan increases so that I can eventually work on the body and the sleeves. And so we're making good progress, I think. We're on track for that. As for working with this yarn, this is my first time working with Mohair, and I really like the Amimono Spin Fish 3. I think that it is just super beautiful. I don't know if you can tell based on the viewfinder, I can't tell, but the yarn is not just a monotone blue. There's like some little hints of pink, which is a pleasant surprise, I think, when you see this kind of mohair blouse and it's not just one color. So I really, really like that surprise element for sure. One thing that I do want to mention, and I don't know if it's because of my inexperience working with mohair on its own, but I feel like my stitch definition is basically non-existent. So I can show you here, but I feel like there are some uneven stitches. There's like some kind of like more fluffier parts of the mohair. I don't know if it's really obvious. I can tell, but I don't know if the camera is kind of picking it up. But I just feel like the stitches don't look as defined as they would be if I was working with wool. Here's another kind of bumpy section. So that's one thing that I've noticed. I don't know if it's just a me problem or if it's just a working with mohair single-stranded problem. But regardless of that, I still think that this ivy blouse is super beautiful so far, and I can't wait to continue to make more progress. I originally started knitting my ivy blouse on metal needles, and I feel like, again, maybe it's because of my inexperience working with mohair and metal needles, but I found that the stitches were very slippy on the metal knitting needles. So when my circumference of the top eventually grew, I switched to these wooden needles from, I think the brand is called Likey or Like or something like that. So I definitely prefer working on these wooden knitting needles as opposed to the metal ones when it comes to mohair, because there's definitely more control and your stitches don't slip and slide as easily as they would with metal knitting needles. Overall, so far so good. I am quite happy with my ivy top so far. And so I will continue working on the pattern and I will check in a bit. So I'm back with another update. I finished the raglan increases on my ivy blouse. This is the back of the top so far. And this is the front of it. Oh, it's curling up a little bit. Let me try to get you a better look. Nope, still curled up. But this is my ivy blouse so far, and I want to give you an accurate representation of the color just because the top kind of changes color a little bit depending on the lighting. I think if I bring it a little bit closer, you can kind of see the true color of the top here. But yeah, I'm really loving the color of this yarn. It is knitting up so beautifully. I do want to mention that for whatever reason, there's this like indentation on both the front and the back of the top. And I don't know if it's because I was working on a smaller circumference cord and maybe that's why it was causing that indentation. I did obviously since then change to a different cord, but maybe it was a little too tight. And so, oh, there's even like the indentation on the cap of the sleeve here. So I don't know if it's because of that. I don't know if it's because I switched to a new ball of yarn and maybe that's why it's causing the indentation. I'm not sure about that, but hopefully it will block out. As I mentioned, I finished the raglan increases on my ivy blouse, and my next step is that I need to split for the body and the sleeves now. So at this point in time, I am almost done with the second ball of the Amimono Spin Fish 3 yarn. I have 5 balls left, and there's really no way for me to get any more of that yarn because I got it in Japan, and I don't know if they ship internationally. I don't even know if they have any more of this yarn. I am really hoping I'm crossing my fingers and my toes that I have enough yarn to make the long sleeve version of the ivy blouse. So please pray for me, you guys. That's all I have for you for now. I will check in when I make more progress. It only took forever and a half, but I finally finished the body of my ivy blouse, and I think it is at a good length for me to bind off the bottom of the top here. And the next step is for me to work on the 2 sleeves. Now, so far with the ivy blouse, I would say that the pattern is pretty straightforward. There's no complicated steps. It's pretty easy to understand. My one, I guess, challenge with this ivy blouse project so far is that working with mohair really tests my patience. The stitches are just so tiny, and so the top just works up so slowly that I feel like even with 1 hour of knitting, I feel like I've made like no progress whatsoever. And so I'm hoping that working the sleeves will be a lot quicker, but we're gonna have to see on that. I have about 2 weeks to finish my ivy blouse just because I want to wear it at my bachelorette dinner. I already bought a satin skirt to pair with this top, so we gotta get this done. I gotta make this work. I really don't have any backup outfits for my bachelorette dinner, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's going to work out. Hopefully in my next update, you will see that I have at least finished 1 sleeve, so stay tuned. So I have some sad news. Also excuse the mess behind me. I am currently reworking my Bo Peep Studios yarn room. But anyway, I am working away on my ivy blouse, and I am not a fan of this sleeve. I'm almost done. I would have been working the last like 2.5 inches on this blouse, and then I would have been done. But I tried it on just to see, and I hate it because it is actually really tight. It wasn't the fit that I wanted for this sleeve. And I'm curious to know if like this mohair will grow a little bit, but based on my swatch, my gauge swatch, it didn't grow that much, if at all. And so I don't have high hopes for this sleeve like growing a little bit and having some positive ease. I don't want the sleeves to be too billowy or anything like that, but I just don't want it to look like a regular long sleeve shirt, especially since there is some positive ease in the shirt, in the body itself. But I'm just not liking the way that it looks on me. I would have preferred for this ivy blouse to be a long sleeve, but I really do not have time to rip it back and knit it again because I have to work on the other sleeve as well. So I really need to step on it and make a decision. Either I rip it back and make it a short sleeve, or I, again, rip it back and maybe just not follow the decreases at all. Like just make no decreases and just knit as is. I don't know. Or I could block it and then see how it looks and then kind of make my decision from there. So what do I do? I've never ripped back mohair before, so that is a little bit intimidating to me. I am afraid of like losing stitches and just making a mess. So I don't really know what to do now. I think the best course of action is for me to block it and determine whether or not the sleeves will grow a little bit. The sleeve will grow a little bit. And if it doesn't grow, then I will have to decide whether or not I chop it off here and make it an IV t-shirt, or just rip it all back and knit a long sleeve without decreases. So we will see. This was not what I was hoping would happen. I really wanted to make progress and move forward with this ivy blouse, but because I'm wearing it at a very special event, I want it to be close to perfect. You know, I want to be happy with it. I'm feeling a little bit sad, but yeah, I guess that's the only thing that we can do now. Block it and see what happens next. My ivy blouse is off the blocking mats. It took a little over a day for my top to fully dry, which is great, but The not so great news is that my sleeve didn't grow whatsoever, at least width-wise. The length did grow a little bit, which is good for me to know so that I don't knit the sleeve too long for my liking, but it didn't grow at all width-wise, and so that means that there is very little, if any, positive ease in the sleeve, which is not the fit that I wanted for my Ivy blouse. There is quite a lot of positive ease in the body of the top, and so it would look really, really weird if I just continued to knit. And so the only decision for me at this point is that I have to rip back my sleeve up until the part where I separated the body and the sleeve here. And so this is going to be quite a sad task for me to do, but it needs to be done. I need to rip it all back so that I can decide at that point whether or not I knit this Ivy blouse into a t-shirt, so an Ivy tee, or I start over and just knit the sleeve again, but without decreases. This is a setback that I was not anticipating. I was really hoping that I would be able to finish my Ivy blouse way before the bachelorette dinner, but I feel like it's going to be really, really close. But yeah, I'm going to rip back my sleeve and hopefully I'll have enough time to knit 2 long sleeves. But if not, I'll just have to compromise and knit 2 short sleeves and then maybe add some length afterwards. So we will see what happens. But yeah, stay tuned for the next update. My Ivy blouse is completely dry. It's off the blocking mats now. And I am just so excited to show you my very first bridal knit of the series. So this is my lovely Ivy blouse and I am so happy with how she turned out. I really liked knitting my Ivy blouse. I found initially that working with mohair yarn was a little bit difficult, especially on metal needles, which is my preferred needle type. So I ended up working the blouse with wooden needles for a little bit until I was more comfortable working with mohair, and I eventually made the switch back to metal needles. I really enjoyed knitting the Ivy blouse. I thought that the pattern was really easy to understand, totally beginner friendly. Petiteknit always does an amazing job with her patterns. I would say that if you are a true beginner and you've never knitted a garment before, I would say maybe skip the Ivy blouse for now, knit a couple of more things, other sweaters with a more thicker type of yarn, and then if you really want to knit the Ivy blouse, definitely give it a try at that point. In total, I used up 6.5 skeins of the Amimono Spin Fish 3 yarn that I bought in Japan, and I'm happy to report that I did win Yarn Chicken. I left the store with 7 skeins and I have a little bit left. Little is an understatement, I think, but I am very, very happy that I didn't end up losing Yarn Chicken just because there really was no way for me to get more of this Fish 3 yarn. Amimono spin, they spin their own yarn, and once it's out, it's out. Like, they don't remake any more yarn. I was a little bit worried initially, but I think it helped that this yarn is 3 strands of mohair held together. So I think that this really worked to my benefit, just because if it wasn't 3 strands, I would have had to buy double the amount of this mohair yarn to make the blouse. Like in the original IV blouse pattern, petiteknit holds 2 strands of mohair, and this 1 skein of yarn has 3 strands of mohair spun together. And so I lucked out on that, I think. But if this Amimono Spin Fish 3 yarn was just like any other mohair yarn and it was just 1 strand of mohair, I don't think I would have been able to win Yarn Chicken. So thankfully, the Ivy Blouse project vlog didn't end in tragedy there. But the total project cost for my Ivy blouse was $142 Canadian, I believe. That's with the cost of the yarn and the cost of the pattern. What else do I have to say about my Ivy blouse? Oh yes, the modifications. So I did modify this blouse a tiny bit just because about more than halfway through knitting one of the sleeves, I'm pretty sure it was this one, I realized that the sleeve was a little too tight on me. Like, it fit, but I kind of imagined a more flowy type of sleeve. And so I ended up ripping it back and knitting the sleeve without decreases. So as a result, this is what the sleeve looks like. It's not too billowy. Other modifications that I made to my Ivy blouse, I adjusted the length of both the body and the sleeves. And so petiteknit asks you in her pattern to knit the body to 53 centimeters, at least for the size medium, which is the one that I knitted. And so I shortened it a little bit and I knitted 50 centimeters instead of 53. And for the sleeves, I believe petiteknit asks you to knit 44 centimeters and I ended up doing 42. So I just shortened it a little tiny bit. Also, something that I did, which was not really a modification, but initially I binded off the body using a stretchy bind off just because I was a little bit worried about how it would fit on my waist and my hips. And so I binded off the body with a stretchy bind off that I found on YouTube. I ended up ripping that back and redoing the bind off to just like a regular bind off to match the bind off on the sleeves. And so I'm very happy with how that is looking like now. It's not stretchy, of course, because it's just a regular bind off, but I do really like the look of this bind off a lot more. Overall, I am so happy with how my Ivy blouse turned out. I know that it will match perfectly with the white satin skirt that I got to pair with it. Yeah, I'm just so excited. I can't wait to wear it to my bachelorette dinner, which is in a couple of days. Those were my final thoughts on my very first bopeepknits project. I really hoped that you enjoyed watching the knitting process from start to finish. My next video, I'm not too sure what I'm going to post next. I have been working on a yarn studio makeover video, but I don't know if I will be posting it. I'm not sure if anybody will even be interested in watching that video. If you are interested in watching a yarn studio makeover video, let me know and I will post it for you guys. Yeah, so it's either that video or a knitting podcast video. So you can vote in the comments. So thank you for watching my Ivy Blouse project vlog until the end. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe so that you are up to date with all of my upcoming videos, as well as a next bridal knit that I will end up casting on. So I guess that's it for now. Until we see each other next, happy knitting. Bye.